Hey guys, what's up? It's been a while. We're back here with another episode on our little buddy, the mini bike. If you're not familiar with the backstory behind this guy, I'll link the first episode at the top and in the description, and it'll be at the end of the video too, of course. But the short of it is, the family's kids were riding the bike and the engine seized, and she wasn't sure what exactly happened, but it could have been user error, we're not sure. So one of the things we were humming and hawing about during the first episode, you remember Matt and I were talking about the oiling system. These have an oil injection system that, based on the amount of throttle and the load by a vacuum on the engine, will pull oil in, two-stroke oil from a tank that should sit right here, that pulls it in through the carburetor, and that's what lubricates your internals. But I can tell right now, which I didn't before, that this tank's missing, so somebody has actually deleted the oiler system. So that obviously wasn't the case, assuming they pre-mixed the oil, of course. So we don't need to be checking into that, and we're not planning on resurrecting that system during the scope of this video anyways. I did notice, however, that the exhaust is loose here. Somebody's already opened up the engine. The head's loose, the nuts have already been loosened off. So, yeah, somebody's already been in here. So, unfortunately, we'll have to try to find two bolts for the exhaust. I'll have to try to source what those are. Parts. I'll take you in for a look at the parts. So they did supply all the parts we need for this rebuild. So we've got, well, sort of the necessary parts. We've got a cylinder head, we've got a cylinder, a new piston, the gaskets, we've got the head studs with nuts on them for new ones. You don't really need to replace the studs unless they're stretched or the threads are bad. So we'll have a really close look at those. We've got a new spark plug. We've got some optional parts. We seem to have a new muffler, so I'm not sure, maybe there was something wrong with the old one. We'll have a look at this too. And while we're at it, I guess we might as well install the new one for them. And they've got some replacement grips, so we'll have a look at that too. The ones on the bike are, yeah, I guess fairly worn. Might have a bit of a sticky throttle situation going on too. So what we're going to start with is this whole seat plastic assembly comes off. There's 8mm bolts under here. That should remove this whole seat assembly, and then we can have a better look at it. Get a better view of what's going on. The carburetor sits under here, and I'm not sure, I think she said it was a few years since it ran, so we'll probably have to take that and at least take a look at it and maybe clean it out. Did purchase a ultrasonic cleaner, so we might be able to test that out and see how that works. On a side note, we got a couple of test tumblers made. So testing those out right now. Might be able to roll out some sort of merch in the future. We'll see. Pretty nice quality tumbler though. Keeps the bevies nice and chilly. So I'll park you guys on the stand and I'll take off the plastic and then we'll go in for a close look. Even these bolts are loose, so yeah, somebody's been working on it, which is okay. Okay, honestly not really a lot more to see in here. Better view of the carb. I believe this is where the oiling line went. I'll have to double check that, but I believe this is where that went, so that's been plugged off. The oil pump itself lives over here, and you can see somebody's just removed the cable from it, and it looks like plugged some stuff off. Here's the feed line, it's been plugged, and I believe this might have been the vacuum signal. I'm not sure on that one either, but that's obviously not there anymore. And they did mention that they had to dunk this thing possibly in some water, so we're going to want to change the case oil. The transmission oil. Interesting. Here we go. I guess not much to remove if it's already been pulled. Okay, so spark plug 13/16. Get that out of there first. Okay. And tight. Plug looks okay actually. And then the head, normally you would loosen these in a crisscross pattern incrementally, but yeah, these are all finger tight. So someone's had this off, of course. So that's all right. You know, it's common for these things to seize. What have you guys seen happen with these in the past? Read a lot of posts and forum entries about losing compression and low compression issues and people changing the cylinders due to that, but I haven't seen too many with them seized. I know that oiling system can be kind of temperamental, but it doesn't look like it really just gives up the ghost. It's more like the adjustment's off and you oil too much or not enough, and follow your plugs if it's too much, and those kind of issues, but not so much catastrophic failures. So here's the inside of our cylinder head. A little bit of carbon buildup. It doesn't actually look too bad. It's going to be loose? Yeah, we're loose already. Interesting, the piston's been removed already, so we can't even take a look at that. Let's take a look in there. It's pretty scored actually. There's some pretty deep grooves along the two sides here. Off the camera I'll pick that up, but there's some, your fingernail definitely, you can hear it. It's definitely not smooth in there. But it almost looks crisscrossed. Like I wonder if somebody didn't try honing this out and try to save the cylinder that way. It's possible, I guess. So to test these things for play, the con rod, you should be able to have a little bit of lateral movement. There's very little there, but no movement in the direction of travel, normal travel. And I think we're lucky here. This one's tight. Crank seems to spin freely, and there's no signs of baddies in here. I don't know if you guys can see in there like that. Pretty effortless to rotate this little guy. And that portion where the pin goes obviously receives a bearing. There's some needle bearings that'll go in here. So let's have a look at these threads. Don't actually seem too bad. I don't see any evidence of anything stretched or bad threads or anything. Nuts spin nicely onto them. I think we might be all right. Just retaining the original. I think we're going to be okay there. Alright, so now that that's all off, I've just taken and stuffed some paper towel down inside here to both keep the connecting rod away from the edges here while I clean it, and keep any debris from going in there. We're going to do a little inspection camera inside there and make sure there's nothing else gunky in there, and make sure everything's cleaned out and blow it out with some air before we reinstall the new pieces. But I'm going to use a scraper tool here and just clean up all these edges for the sealing gasket, and then once that's all done, then we can start looking at doing some assembly of the piston inside the head, and then we'll be able to assemble that onto the head studs. So I'll come back after I clean a little bit of this off. Okay, so now that we've got everything taken apart here, we've got the gasket surface all nice and clean, I'm going to just do a quick inspection inside this small end of the con rod just to make sure there's no scoring in it, and then we're going to try the bearing in it to make sure there's no play. So I'm just going to use a little bit of penetrating fluid just to clean this out, get some of the oil and gunk out of here. I'll take you in for a closer look, but it looks really clean in there. No marks, no scratches, nothing. So that's what you want to see. So I'm going to just try. This is of course the bearing and then the wrist pin there. So we're going to try to slide the bearing in here, just dry for now, just to test the fit. And the pin. And then again, we'll make sure there's no play, no end play, which is back and forth in the direction the cylinder would travel. And I'm just pulling it back and forth, and yeah, I can't feel anything. It's all nice and tight. If you did have slop in here, if the slop was at this end or it was scored, you'd have to replace this connecting rod. If the slop was down inside here, then the crankshafts probably has to be replaced. But I doubt this would wear out just the connecting rod and not the crank, so that would be bad news. But we were good on this one, so we're going to pull these back out and them for cleaning and oiling, and then we'll assemble these parts of the cylinder. Alright, so this is of course the piston. So there's some pre-assembly we have to do to this. If you look real close at it, the size 40, that's the stock size stamped into it there. I don't know if you can read it or not, but you'll also see there's an arrow here that points up to here. That points at the exhaust side of the cylinder head. So later when we assemble it, the arrow will be over here, and it'll point here towards the exhaust side. So it's important to make sure those line up right. So this would sit on the bike like this. And then what the assembly instructions recommend is you put the left circlip in first. These are the little circlips, and those hold the wrist pin in, of course. So for us, the left one would be this one. So what we're going to do is just take a pair of needle nose pliers, and you just start at one section, put it in the groove, and then you should be able to twist it around to make it smaller and pop it in. A little bit of a pain to get in there. There we go. It's in. Also important to note is now you've got this little pigtail hanging out in there. The pigtail is supposed to point in the direction of the piston travel. So either pointing down or pointing up, it doesn't matter. So you just grab that and rotate the circlip until it's pointing in the right direction like this. And then now the rings, this kit has 2 keystone rings, so they're the same. Both these rings are identical. And if you look, they're tapered slightly towards this, which would go to the top of the piston. If you can't figure out which end's tapered, they cut angles onto the ends of the rings too. You can see the angles cut this way and this way. So the short part would face towards the top of the piston. So what we're going to do is we'll take a little bit of oil here, and we'll oil up the top of the piston a little bit so it's a little easier to get the rings on. Then we'll start with the bottom ring first. And you'll see also there's 2 locating pins. You can see one, let's see, how can I point to this? You can see one right there, and there's another one here, and they're of course offset by that much, just so that there's an overlap in the gap for the rings. If they were to line up, then you could easily lose compression between the two spots, of course. So we're going to just start in one spot, work our way around and push the ring down. You can also help if you spread the ring at the same time. But once you get started, it pops in pretty easily. And there we go. The first one is lined up with the pin. And you should be able to slide the ring around quite easily. It shouldn't be hanging up or anything like that on anything. And second ring. Okay, got both rings in place. Both are centered at the locating pins, so that's ready to go. And the next thing the manual says is to clean off any rust inhibitor that may be put on here from shipping. So if I feel this, it feels kind of sticky, so there's definitely something in it. So I'm going to use some brake clean just to flush that off. Give it a wipe. Okay, that's nice and clean. So next we're going to fit the piston inside there. So before we do that, we're going to oil up the inside of the cylinder. There we go, all lubed up. So again, the clip that's installed is going to be on the left side of the bike, which is over here, and our arrow's lining up with the exhaust. So we're good there. And then you just want to kind of pinch these rings closed as you're inserting them, but watch the pins still, because it's pretty easy for this to overlap and then you won't get it in. So just pay attention to where they are as you compress them, and then you shouldn't really have any issues. Just focus on one ring at a time. Okay, and then you want to just leave the leave it exposed just enough that you can get the pin in there. And our arrow's correct, pointing at the exhaust port on this side, so we're good. All right, so for this part, we are now able to put this gasket on, and that fits only one way if you match up the shape of the case. Make sure you don't catch and tear it on these threads. That wouldn't be a good day. Okay. There we go. So that fits real nicely onto the block there. Now we're going to take the needle bearing and soak it in some oil. I'm just using a nice clean 10W30 for this. You can use assembly lube too, it's a little thicker and it sticks around a little longer during startup, but especially on this bike, we're not using the oil injection system anyway, so it's going to get lubrication straight away from the fuel anyhow, so not a big deal. Okay, so now we gotta put these in together. Line it up, and we're gonna grease up this wrist pin as well. Lots of oil, and slide it into the cylinder and through the connecting rod. Okay. Okay, so I've just got it spun around here so we can see the other side. Same thing, grab the pin with your needle nose. Sorry, the clip, not the pin. And the pin, the wrist pin should be far enough in that you can see the groove in the piston where the other clip goes. And if you can't see like me, just use a little pick tool and see if you can feel for the groove. It's really hard to see it actually, but yeah, it's there. So we'll go ahead and pop this in. And this one's going to be a little tougher to get in there. I think I got it. Rotating it's a bit of a pain. Now that I got it in, doesn't want to move. There we go. Do the tug test, make sure it's not going to come out. Check the other side for good measure. Okay, both are good. So at this point we should be able to walk the whole cylinder assembly in. There we go. And we'll just try the Kickstarter slowly and make sure the piston moves freely. And it does. Okay, right at the top there. Just gonna clean off the excess oil here quickly. I'm just going to use a microfiber cloth just to make sure there's nothing left behind on there, no fuzz or anything, since this is where the head gasket's going to go. More parts cleaner. You don't want to take a shortcut at this point, because if that doesn't seal right, well, that should be obvious what's going to happen, but definitely want a good sealing surface for the head gasket. There we go. Look how cute that little guy is. Not much bigger than my thumb. I feel like I'm building a model or something. Okay, here we have the new cylinder head. And I'm just going to use some parts cleaner and clean that out as well. Pick a new clean spot on the cloth. There we go. And then we get to put the head gasket in. On this, they recommend putting the raised portion towards the block, the cylinder head, the piston. So that's the raised portion there. It's hard to see because it's so shiny, but the raised ridge goes inwards. Like that. And then the cylinder head goes on. The smaller fins, the open part, goes upwards. So like this. There we go. Like that. And then we're going to take the 4 new nuts, put them on. Get them started by hand. And again, these were a 10 millimeter. So I'm just gonna get these started, and then we'll torque them after. So when you go to tighten these, you tighten them in a crisscross pattern. So alternating crisscross pattern and tighten them evenly. So we're just going to go ahead and run them down till there's no more slack first, and then we'll give it a light tighten all the way around. Okay, so we've got contact on all of them, but nothing's gotten tight yet. So good time to check that you get equal amount of threads on all 4 of these. So you know this thing's set evenly and you don't have any stretched studs. Okay, and we want, for this, 7.2 foot-pounds. So we'll just keep going back and forth crisscross until I feel the same amount of tension on each. Keep going around, crisscross to 7.2 till they're all even and there's no more movement. There we go. All right, spark plug time. The recommended plug for this one is NGK BPR4HS. And the recommended gap is between 24 and 28 thou. So if I check the gap on this guy, it's actually right around 25. 28 doesn't fit. And that's as small as this gauge goes, so that should be good. And the torque is 14 foot-pounds for that guy. Either too slow or way too fast, isn't it? 14. There we go. And for this spark plug, we don't want this outer portion, so twist that off. And that looks good. Reattach the spark plug. There we go. Okay. For this next part, I wanted to drain the transmission here. For that, we're gonna have to take it off the stand quickly so that I can access the drain bolt, and so it's level. Yeah, it's not level enough. So I'll do that. I'll pull it off the stand, get it on the floor, and then we can drain the oil and put new oil in. All right, so here we are on the drain bolt, and it's a 12 millimeter, and I couldn't get a socket on there, so I had to get my wrench. So move this along. Hopefully we're not going to find any water in here. And it's only supposed to hold 0.3 liter, 300 milliliters, so shouldn't be too much in here. Oh wow. Surprisingly clean. I'm betting they probably drained this when they figured out they may have gotten water in the bike and already replaced this once. But you know, how do you know until you look? So we'll let this drain out, and we'll put some new oil in there. Yeah, it looks brand new. It's not even discolored at all. I don't think it was even ran after this oil got put in. The fill point is right here, which I've already loosened off. Just a little plastic cap. Make sure the rubber O-ring's in good shape. But there is of course no dipstick or anything on these bikes, so they write the required amount of oil on the side of the case here, which is 300 centimeters cubed, which is the same as 300 milliliters or 0.3 of a liter. So I don't have a nice fancy syringe, so if you don't, you can do this little trick. Get yourself a clear plastic bottle or jar even. Go to the old lady's cabinet and get out the measuring cup or the little graduated little beaker thing. Fill it with 300 milliliters or whatever quantity you need. Pour it in here. Oh, just use water, nice warm water. And then make a line. Dump that out, let it dry out. And now you know exactly where 300 milliliters of oil will be. So that's how I get around buying fancy extraction syringes and all that stuff. This just calls for 10W30 oil, so I'm going to put some good quality Castrol in there for them. 300 milliliters. Easy peasy. So that's finished draining out there, so put the plug back in. And we've got a little funnel. And then we'll meter in the 300 milliliters of new oil. Boy, I sure hope I fast forwarded that for you guys watching this, because that'd be a real dick move watching watching you watch oil drain down a funnel. If I didn't, you can call me out on it. Okay. So that's the engine done, the oil changed. The other things I wanted to do for this bike still is, I don't know if there's even gas in this. Actually, why don't we take a look? I don't know if we'll be able to tell with the camera, but if there is, it's, I don't know how old. And there is, it's about half full. It doesn't smell awful, but it doesn't smell great either. Since I don't know how long it's been in there for, if they put stabilizer in it, I'm going to go ahead and change it out. I did buy a bunch of this pre-mixed 40-to-1. That seems to be anywhere from 32 to 50 guys are saying is the right mixture for these if the oil injection system's been disabled, and this one has. So I'll pull that tank off, we'll drain it into an empty canister, and then we'll put some fresh fuel in there. The other thing I want to do is pull the carburetor off, and I bought a ultrasonic cleaner, so we're going to give that a test, see how that works, and then clean that out, put it back together, and then we'll see if the bike will run. The other thing I still need to do too, actually, is clean this air filter out, and I need to find a it doesn't look the greatest. Might see if I can find one in town. It at least has to get taken out and cleaned and re-oiled. And I need to take this off anyway to get this carburetor off here. But this thing looks pretty gunky. Yeah, sure. I know this is the outside, but then again, it's probably been a while since the inside got looked at. And if this thing did go for a dip, then it's, who knows what's in there. So we'll take that off and clean it out. Yeah, filter in the carb, put the new gas in, and I need to find 2 bolts for the exhaust. If you remember, we were missing those. So that will be tomorrow's project. But for you, it'll be in a few minutes. So